This Week in Startups is brought to you by PagerDuty, serving as the hub of your operations, aggregating all of your infrastructure monitoring tools and alerting the right people and teams at the right time. Sign up today at pagerduty.com/twist and get a free t-shirt when you get your first alert. And InVision. Find out why so many hot startups are using InVision to prototype, present, and collaborate on design in real time. Sign up for a 90-day free trial today at envisionapp.com/twist.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this is the show where we talk about startups, technology, angel investing, and changing the world through products and services created by entrepreneurs, founders as we call them. We do two types of show here. We do interview shows where we talk to founders, and then we do the News Roundtable. Today, the News Roundtable with two of my oldest friends and former partners. Brian Alvey from Recurrency is here. Welcome back to the program, Brian Alvey.
Love it.
I don't know when the last time you were on the program was. When was it? A year ago?
It was a long time. When I interviewed you.
You interviewed me for episode 500,
right.
Correct. And people love that
and
episode.
We're up past 600 now, right?
605 or something maybe.
Kicking ass.
And Ryan Block is here. Of course, Ryan was the co-founder of Engadget, worked on Gadget together. I was on the board of that company. And now has a new company, which I invested in, but we're not talking about. We're teasing it.
I'm not even teasing it, but
can I tease it? Can I do a little tease? What can I say? Can I say the name?
If you must. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right.
What's the name? What's the name?
The name is Small Wins. Small Wins.
Small Wins.
Small Wins. But I can't say what it does. But I think it's very clever.
We haven't announced anything yet.
Can I say the category? It's not a gadget blog. We know that. It's
definitely not a
gadgets.
gadget blog.
It's like productivity. Let's leave it at that.
Is the show streaming live right now?
Is the show streaming live right now? It probably is, yeah. No, not streaming live right now.
And it goes out Wednesday?
When? Friday? Wednesday?
Okay, so I can talk about, we're announcing something today.
Oh, it's going today? Okay, we can announce today's, yes.
What time does it go out today?
But it's not going out today. Is it going out today? Oh, 5 o'clock maybe.
Oh, okay. So that should probably be okay.
Okay.
So we have a little project we're going to put out today, just early. It's called BugBot. BugBot. Yeah, it's just a little something. It's not a big deal. It's not like
not the main
anything
product.
to totally lose your mind about or anything. It's GitHub Issues for Slack. So we use GitHub Issues. We use GitHub. It's a great product. And we got tired of doing GitHub Issues, so we built a connector for Slack. And it's just like a little thing that is relevant to some of the other stuff we're going to be doing later.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. And then everybody can follow Ryan. He's part of the First Name Club on the Twitter. And everybody can follow Brian Alvey on the Twitter. Listen, Yahoo has been taking a beating. They canceled their Alibaba spinoff, and they might bundle and sell the core web assets. That's because the IRS said you can't spin off Alibaba shares into a new company and not pay taxes. Everybody's trying to not pay their taxes. And shareholder Spring Owl, which I've never heard of, is an asset management firm that desperately wants to kick Marissa out of the company. They want directors replaced, and they want to do a reduction in the headcount from a whopping 12,000 to 3,000. And they say that Mark Andreessen wanted to buy Yahoo with the same exact plan a number of years ago. And obviously, Mark Andreessen said whoever buys Yahoo should make cuts in the close to 10,000 range. They want to focus on the homepage and mail, finance, and sports, which of course are the winning sections. And a bunch more people have left the company. It seems like Marissa cannot hold on to any senior executives. And the question is, how long will Mayor last? And what do you think of the situation at Yahoo, Ryan?
I mean, it's pretty gnarly from the outside. Obviously. I don't know how bad it is on the inside. I mean, I've heard things, but I don't work there. I have no idea how low morale is sunk internally. I think more than anything else, Marissa, she has a really bad messaging problem. I'm not anti Marissa at all. I actually think that she's done a lot more than people give her credit for with Yahoo, but she's got to get this messaging under control like immediately. It's definitely in like messaging death spiral mode right now, to the point where this is like a Dick Costolo moment. Like her head's going to be on a pike very soon if she does not get this thing under control.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Brian?
Who can save Yahoo? You know what I mean? Who could you stick in there? If you took any other genius running any other company in the Valley and said, we're just going to swap you with Marissa, they're not going to do a better job. So does that mean she's horrible? It's hard to tell. Back when Mike Jones was running MySpace, I told him, I said, you can't turn it around in place. You can't turn around a thing with that same name and 6 years from now have MySpace be the #1 site in the world again after it was in the past. And I just told him it was like you're standing in a field trying to catch a falling airplane with a baseball glove. There's a really, really small chance you can do it. You're a smart guy. A lot of smart guys have tried. It's a mess. I think the activist shareholder that we've never heard of, this Eric Jackson guy that we're talking about, I think it's an easy target. I think he's a novice activist shareholder. He's not Carl Icahn. And it's very easy to say, I'm going to be an activist shareholder. What should I do first? How do I improve my skills, my chops, right? Make my bones. And I'll take on Yahoo. So it's a mess. I don't expect much. But
so you think it's unsavable?
I think it's unsavable. I mean, it's unsavable as it is.
What do you think? Let me ask you to each describe what Marissa's strategy has been. Describe Marissa's strategy in a sentence.
Infuse Yahoo with as many and the smartest people that she can get her hands on, both through acquisition and through hiring internally.
Great. How has that gone for her, do you think?
Well, I mean, we haven't seen the results, right?
We have seen no results.
Yeah, we haven't seen the results. We've seen some results. I mean, they bought Tumblr. That's not nothing. I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
But it hasn't gone.
And that was really smart.
It hasn't gone anywhere, really. It hasn't grown.
It certainly hasn't impacted their bottom line.
It's no Instagram.
Yes.
Put it that way. Brian, summarize summarize Marissa's strategy for Yahoo in a sentence.
From the outside, not being her, it's on-the-job training. Make it up as you go. It's really tough. So I really think she got in there and she's like done the best she can do. I don't think you could, say she hasn't tried, right? But and she's made a lot of gambles. I'll get Katie Couric. I'll pay her a lot of money. I'll get David Pogue. Pay him a lot of money, right? All these people, all these things.
Terrible gamble, by the way.
Saturday Night Live deal, right? But you look back and the wins, things like Tumblr is a win, but like you said, it's no Instagram. But one of the charts that jumps out of that shareholder thing is the Instagram versus Tumblr thing, and how one has grown and one was they're both billion-dollar acquisitions, where one is effectively because of Yahoo's share price worth zero or less than zero, and the other one is worth arguably $35 billion within Facebook, right? So definitely the tale of two acquisitions there. But it's I think there's a great tweet out there, probably Mark Andreessen, sorry, that says, she didn't buy enough stuff. She bought too much stuff. Yeah. And you can say both things at the same time. She didn't spend enough. She made a lot of small little acquisitions that nobody gives a crap about. Yeah. Sumly or Sumify or whatever. Those things didn't go anywhere. So she should have spent more. And then they go, well, she spent too much. So it's, she can't win.
I think when you look at this, they had 2 or 3 businesses when she joined, right? They had their display network, they had search, and they have content, and then they have some services. So depending on how you put those all together, there's the content business, Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Sports, Yahoo, et cetera. There's the services like Mail and Flickr, and then you have search, which, they kind of outsourced. And then you have the display ad network, and those are 4 different businesses. I think the problem was that she said, we're going to be for mavens, mobile, video, social, and then layer that on top of the 4 existing businesses. So you have 7 strategies that you're trying to execute concurrently. Maybe 5 or 6 too many. What would you all have done if you were given the reins of Yahoo playing, Monday morning quarterback here, but 4 years ago we gave you Yahoo? What do you do?
I mean, to me, the problem with Yahoo remains the same. So as much as I actually, I think that she hasn't gotten enough credit for some of the things she has done, she has not solved the very simple question of what is Yahoo? What is it? Still nobody knows what Yahoo is.
Too many things.
A lot of people have criticized Tim Armstrong and AOL over the last few years. I'm a former employee via acquisition there. But I mean,
it's content.
They answered that question.
We
right?
are content.
They're a giant ad network. and marketing network with content.
Yeah. Their content and their business model is advertising.
Yeah, pretty clear, crisp answer there. And they build things around that. So they buy ad tech businesses and they focus on marketing and marketers and they do some content. And they're doing video, right? And so it's like...
And video is part of content. So they're a content company that has an ad network. It's perfectly reasonable.
Right. So what is Yahoo? See, nobody can answer this question still.
Yeah.
And this is, if it's unsavable, I think that's why, because it requires someone to come in and answer this question. And I think to a very large degree, the only person who can answer this question is Jerry Yang. He's got to come back and he's got to answer this question. What is Yahoo in 2015, 2016, 2017? He doesn't have to be the CEO to do that, but...
Well, which would you have chosen? If you were forced to go in there and they said, hey, listen, make it grow, make it more profitable, what would you have done?
I mean, that's an impossible question for me to answer, not knowing. And this is why I think, like, you know, Marissa probably had a very difficult time formulating a strategy, because how could you possibly know what you're getting into with a company as large and crufty as Yahoo without actually getting in there? You just have to dive in. From me as an outsider, like I can't provide any meaningful perspective on that. But
what would you have done, Brian?
Got to answer the question.
So the last thing you said, it sounds like when you're running for president, you have all these ideas and ideals and you're going to get there. And then when you actually get there and they say, okay, we're in this silent room, we're going to tell you all the secrets, who did this, what happened there, what you can and can't do. And you realize the job you thought you were going to get with all these great ideals and these directions you're going to take it in, you're like, crap, I'm handcuffed from this, I can't do that, and this is all I can do, and then you kind of move it forward a little bit. You know, Ross Levinson invested in one of my old companies, so I liked him. I liked the idea of them being like, be one thing, be a media company, right? Do this thing well. He didn't stay. She came in actually from another activist shareholder.
Would he have done better?
He would have done something different. So actually,
would it have worked better?
No, I don't think it would have worked better, and that's because with what I'm doing now, right? This recurrency thing, right? With people paying for, you know, paying superstars for their sort of access to them. There's no room in there for advertisers, and so I'm kind of anti-advertising, anti-Facebook selling your data, anti that whole thing. And if you think about it, Yahoo is this crazy old thing that sits on top of this giant wave of internet advertising that may come, get big, and then go. And
display advertising.
Once display advertising itself is toxic, you have ad blockers, all these things going on. Yahoo is the single biggest benefactor of that, and they're going to write it down. So how do you change the entire internet?
You're basically going against the tide.
Correct.
Is what you're saying.
Yes.
When we get back, I'll give you my solution to solving Yahoo, which would have worked, by the way. But first, I want to tell you about PagerDuty. Everybody knows being on call is brutal, especially Brian Alvey, because when we were doing Weblogs Inc. together with Ryan, he was the one on duty. You get constant alerts. You don't want to roll your own monitoring system. You want to use a professional system like PagerDuty. It aggregates all of your monitoring tools and increases reliability and uptime by providing clear visibility and accountability. They have beautiful iOS and Android apps that allow you to be on the go and receive alerts, and you're not going to lose your developers and sysadmins and sysops people because your on-duty PagerDuty moments are a disaster. No, you're going to have it nice and clean and buttoned up. It pays for itself by keeping your developers happy and reducing turnover. 100 pre-built integrations with partners like HipChat from Atlassian, eHarmony, Pinterest, New Relic, Airbnb, Nagios, Slack, Path. Hey, one of my companies, Chartbeat, uses it and they love it. Here's what Justin had to say. He's the senior operations engineer at Chartbeat, which is doing amazing. And that's a system that has to be online all the time. PagerDuty gives Chartbeat one central place to send critical alerts. We now have a simple, easy process for on-call scheduling. So here's your call to action, everybody. Sign up for a free 14-day trial at pagerduty.com/twist. and get a free t-shirt with your first alert. Yes, pagerduty.com/twist. And thank you so much to our friends at PagerDuty for making a delightful product that we use, love, and for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. All right, listen. Yahoo is a disaster. Marissa did a great job for the first 2 years. She bought a bunch of companies. I think that was smart. Get a bunch of new talent in there. She made it livable there. She gave everybody iPhones. She gave everybody food. Great. She caught up to the rest of the valley. But two things became clear in the second half. One, she wasn't able to hold on to talent. Why? Well, nobody wants to be on a losing team, and maybe Marissa's not the best manager of talent. We've heard that before on the program. Jason Shellen said he didn't like working for her. He gave a lot of stories about waiting for her. She's late for meetings. She's a little bit tough to get along with. Who knows if that's all true? People have said it. Maybe she's advanced as a leader. But anyway, she's not keeping talented people at the company. It's hard to keep talented people at a company that, as Brian said, the tide's going out. Like who's going to stay there when you could work at companies that are crushing it and growing, right? She's up against Airbnb, Uber, Google, Facebook, so many places to go work where things are going well, plus becoming your own entrepreneur. And I think the biggest issue was she never made it clear what their business was and bet on one piece of it. You bought Tumblr, so you were and you have the content business. You should have done that, and then divested the other businesses, like sell the display networks maybe, and just become 100% content. If it's me, I had a very easy solution to all this. You have tons of traffic, you have tons of services. People love to watch videos. She should have gone all in on video because she did Community, she did Katie Couric, she did SNL, she did Yahoo Screen. Yahoo Screen was a great product. It looked good. It was a nice looking app. But there was no product cadence at Yahoo. We never saw a 2.0 out of any of these products. It was always one and done. She should have insisted that the people doing the apps had a new product, a new feature set on Product Hunt every 3 to 6 months, maybe 4 months would be perfect, 3 times a year. She should have held a keynote where everybody in the company rallied around their new products that, delighted people. They never really made video work, and they gave up. They did Community, they did Katie Couric, they did SNL, but you never heard what they learned from that and then iterated on it. Display advertisers have turned into video advertisers. They could have very easily crushed it on the video front. They didn't focus enough. That's my belief. What do you think of my take? Well, my plan would have been to just literally get rid of everything or put everything on maintenance mode and just get rid of half the people and then invest in content relentlessly. Hire tons of video bloggers, vloggers, and make it, maybe grab a couple of the emerging YouTube stars, put them on staff, give them salaries, give them upside, whatever. If they just hired 100 really great video people for $1 million a year, $2 million a year, and then had $2 or $3 million a year in budgets, $500 million. That's the cost of the food. It's half the cost of the Tumblr acquisition. I mean, people are crazy about some of their content.
I would take Zay Frank over Katie Couric any day. I like Katie Couric, but future of the internet versus past, right?
Celebrities
Past of TV,
never
right.
deliver. Mm-hmm. Old media celebrities, no offense to Katie Couric, she's delightful, but there's no way they're going to deliver. They don't have an online audience. You need to get iJustine. You take iJustine over her. Smosh Brothers,
I'm going to go with Veronica Belmont, but okay.
I would go with Veronica Belmont, 100%. But there's so many talented people out there, they should have just bought those up. Anyway.
Okay, but look, what is the largest original video, native original online video creator, and that's all they do, right? And we're not talking about like Netflix or Amazon that has a bunch of other business, but like
Vice.
Yeah, well, but I mean, they've got a big other non-video editorial business. Yeah, I'm trying to like what is the parallel to what you are talking about that exists out there already, and what is the biggest one of that? And
Netflix.
How big are they?
Netflix is huge, and they do a lot of.
But Netflix's core business is selling other people's content or reselling other people's content.
It was, but now they've definitively gone towards making original, right? So they're winning a lot of Emmys, right?
They have, and
so there was a roadmap there.
Yep, they followed HBO's one 10 years later.
Yeah, right. They wanted to be HBO. They said, Reed Hastings said he wants to be HBO before HBO becomes us. I get it, but that's not what you're proposing Yahoo is doing, right? Yahoo's not going to be Netflix. So if Yahoo's going to be the original content creator, like what is the biggest one that is not repackaging other people's content?
Well, it would be YouTube and Netflix. Those and Amazon's doing originals now too. So between those three, I think they could have made it happen. And you could have had a blend. They could have kept buying some assets, competing with the Netflix and Hulu's for the archives. They did one live Monday Night Football, I believe, or like a Thursday Night Football. They did one football game. They could have kept going after rights, kept going to advertise, and that could have been their core competency.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem.
And maybe get PewDiePie and a couple of those people, maybe do a video game channel, do finance. They had done Henry Blodgett as part of Yahoo Finance. It was incredible. People were tuning into it. So they could have done Yahoo Finance, 8 hours a day. They could have done Yahoo Sports 10 hours a day. They could really have made that business work, I believe.
This is kind of the problem, though, with reviving an old company, right? I mean, it's the frog in the bath of boiling water, right? It's easier to watch it bleed out, even if you don't know, especially if you don't know that that's what's happening, than it is to bet the farm on one big risky thing.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that will probably, with the Monday morning quarterbacking, Marissa is a brand. She brings excitement. She got M&A deals done, so she's a good deal maker. But she probably isn't a visionary, product designing person who leads people and inspires people. So,
what's she going to do after Yahoo?
There
will come a day when she leaves Yahoo.
Counter money. I mean, she's going to make $500 million from this.
She is a player
her.
who is in it for the love of the game. She never even needed to go to Yahoo.
I mean, I think she probably will wind up having made more money from Yahoo than Google. She probably made a couple $100 million, $200 or $300 million at Google.
You really think
probably
Marissa's going to sit out though? Like, you think she's just going to retire?
I mean, she could wind up being she could start her own venture capital firm. She might be really good at that. She could take over but here's the thing with the media company. Like, obviously, she did not have media company chops.
Right.
The choices were weird. Katie Couric, Community. She didn't have like any sense of content, and I don't think she has a great product eye either. But she is good at M&A, so maybe doing M&A stuff is a really good thing for her. But I mean, that's the question: is at Google, Kara Swisher has been brutal on Marissa, and Kara Swisher kind of says that Marissa is all jazz hands, like she's really good at PR and getting attention, but not good at product and people. So maybe she needs to be paired with somebody who's good at product, right? If she had a product visionary, and I guess David Karp was maybe going to be that, and he was going to stay, but they never released any product.
How are you going to do that from New York when the rest of the company is in
That doesn't make any sense either,
Yeah.
right? There's no commitment there. Anyway, disaster. Let's move on to our next topic. So let's go over to, what should we talk about? IPOs. Zuck.
IPOs is easy.
All right, let's talk about IPOs. 28 tech companies entered the U.S. public market this year. 62 entered in 2014, 48 in 2013. Why so few? And poor performance by Etsy, Box, and Fitbit. 131 unicorns are remaining private. Uber, Airbnb, Palantir. Are they just overvalued and think they're going to get a down round by going public? Benioff has come out and said he's no longer going to invest in unicorns. He feels they're gaming the market. Bill Gurley, who obviously is on the board and a major investor in Uber, is pushing people to go public. It seems like he's having like a little bit of a public, encouragement of Uber to go public. What are your thoughts, Brian, on unicorns and going public?
Yeah, I only said it's an easy topic just because you talk about here's how hard it is for a superstar to come into a dying brand that's public and kind of get her ass kicked every quarter. And then why don't people go public anymore?
Because you get your ass kicked every quarter.
I think it's because you get your ass kicked every quarter. The only time I met Mark Pincus was he gave some talk. The whole talk was 2008, 2009, I think. And his whole thing was, I've run a public company before. I hated it. I'm keeping Zynga private for forever because it's not an exit, it's an entrance. When you IPO, it's an entrance into like the pain in the ass, brutal cycle, the stuff you have to go through in the press and the managing these expectations and people who don't know what the hell you're doing, betting, telling you how much you're worth, right? He hates that. And then like 6 months later, they announced they're going public and we saw
it didn't work out too well.
It didn't work out.
It went right underwater.
Right.
In fact.
So with
tricky.
Was it the NASDAQ? NASDAQ bought Second Market recently?
They did.
Yes. Is there going to be kind of an intermediate marketplace for equity?
Clearly, it already is happening in most companies that there's secondaries.
But at scale, right?
At scale is the big question.
Because, I will tell you, not that I have any expectation of going public. That would be great. That'd be a fantastic outcome. Yeah. But, man, I could not be less interested in the bullshit that's associated with running a public company.
Yeah.
And the arbitrariness of the market based on things that really don't matter. And the natural incentives for short-term thinking. And all of the work you have to do to set things up and hope and pray that you've got the right investor set to allow you to think and operate long-term. So, if there was ever a choice, I would choose else, right? I don't know what else is yet, but not that.
None of the above currently, but if there was a way to have a fluidity in the secondary market, maybe every quarter there was an opportunity for people to host an auction, right? So let's just say end of every quarter, a company gave out their basic numbers to their shareholders. or, 2 months after the end of the quarter, they said, hey, internal shareholders, here's how we did in this quarter. And there's an opportunity to sell this amount of shares. The buyers have lined up and put in their bids. You put in your ask. If any of these match, we'll just do an auction, right? Like the auction that Google did when they sold their first shares. Like, how many do you want to buy at $100? How many do you want to buy at 95? How do you want to buy at 90? So they did that, and every quarter, Uber or Airbnb said, hey, these 5 early investors want to sell 10% of their positions or 20% of their positions. If it clears this hurdle and the buyers could come in and say, I'll buy at this price, that could be pretty delightful for people.
I kind of wonder what with Title III of jobs and the fact that the market still seems to have not recovered from the dot-com crash, and the irrationality on all sides. There are definitely no retail
investors in there, yeah.
Yeah, and the irrationality on all sides. It just seems like the tech industry is going to be forced sooner or later to address the ridiculousness that is the cruffy public market. And so how are we going to do that?
Public market seems to love Facebook, Google, maybe not Twitter, but definitely Facebook, Google, Microsoft. Amazon.
They love Amazon.
It seems like when these certain companies are going to just do spectacular there. Mm-hmm. All right, when we get back from commercial break, let's talk a little bit about Zuck giving all his money away and Bitcoin and Satoshi being found or not. Lots of news coming up. And let me just take a moment to tell you about Envision app. I don't know if you guys use Envision app, but we use it constantly here. Envision lets you create mock-ups and mobile designs that are clickable, prototypes. You can send them to your constituents, whether that's customers or your investors, and let them play with it. Say goodbye to all those confusing email chains or chat rooms where you're talking about the product with PDFs and attachments. No, with Envision, I use it. I look at a link. I hit the C button to go and turn comments on. I hit the crosshairs on different parts of the product, and I have a question about them. Hey, can we see what this looks like with a different font? Can we see what this looks like with drop shadow? Hey, can we take another spin at these icons? And then my designers or my product manager can post comments there. They all get alerts. And everything is central and more efficient. If you're not using Envision, you're falling behind your competitors. I can guarantee you of that. And I tell you this, as an angel investor, when somebody sends me an Envision link and says, hey, here's the next version of my product, I click on it. In fact, it's the first thing I click on. I would click on an Envision link above reading the actual email, reading the deck, or reading the AngelList page. I want to see your product as an angel investor. All investors want to see your product because they want to see how you think and how consumers are connecting with your product and what's your process. A prototype is worth 10,000 words. And Envision powers designers at some of the world's smartest companies. You may have heard of Twitter, Airbnb, Evernote, Adobe, and many more. And right now, Envision is giving away their starter plan for free for 90 days. Just visit envisionapp.com/twist. Envisionapp.com/twist. It's an amazing product. I love using it. All my portfolio companies use it. We use it at Inside. We use it at launch. I highly recommend trying it. You guys ever use Envision?
Used it today.
Absolutely.
Used it today? There you go. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Like you can just send a mock-up to... You're going to send me a mock-up of that new Recurrency thing that you're going to show on March 2nd, 3rd, or 4th at the Launch Festival.
That's correct. That's what I'm using it for.
Oh, I love that new product. It's so brilliant. Launching a new product soon. Okay, listen. Zuck is going to give away 99% of his wealth. He decided, and that's about $45 billion and counting right now, but he is doing it through an LLC instead of a nonprofit, which of course has everybody criticizing him in the press. And there's these questions of, will he be able to maintain control of Facebook? At the same time, Zuck and Gates and Branson and Bezos are doing a breakthrough energy coalition, and they are trying to help climate change. And Jeff Bezos has joined Twitter. Looks like he's doing it to tweak Elon by showing his rocket going up and down and claiming that he's the first person to make a rocket land, which he isn't. Obviously, Elon did that first. What are your thoughts, Ryan, on Zuckerberg giving all this money away and the reaction to it?
I think the reaction is just so internet, right? I mean, where else can you give away $45 billion and people criticize you for it?
Unbelievable, right?
I mean, I think we should always give people benefit of the doubt. I think that's just the right thing to do in life. But I think we should definitely give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, what reason could he have for giving $45 billion away and doing so in this manner, if not because he felt that was the best possible way to do it, the most sustainable and the the smartest possible means to distribute that wealth and to have that function and carry on over numerous generations. I'm assuming he did his homework. He's Mark Zuckerberg. I mean,
Yeah.
Can we seriously? Can we all just stop armchair quarterbacking for a second and
Just take in the fact that he gave away $45 billion. I mean,
Absolutely.
This is huge. Brian, what do you think of this format? Why did he choose this LLC, do you think? And why did the press, because it wasn't just the haters on Twitter. Of course, there's a bunch of mentally ill people on Twitter all day long.
I love
Gotta love them. But you have these haters on, Twitter going crazy, but you also had the press saying, hey, let's dig a little deeper here. What is the purpose of an LLC versus a charity? Which I think is kind of fair game to just try to understand why he chose the structure. What do you think the choosing of the structure meant?
So again, super clever guy, right? I think it's fascinating that all of us, they went internet on him, like you said. We've all seen The Social Network, so I think we understand his psyche and his motivations better than his own wife and his mom do, right?
Right, we saw the film.
We saw the film. I know exactly.
It's got to
what
be accurate.
Exactly.
And
correct.
also, I think it's great that he's playing Lex Luthor.
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah,
really
he's really
feel
good.
like he's branching
He grew
out.
his hair out.
He grew his hair out.
Thing. Right.
And he's really become a fine actor in his spare time.
No, he's actually just channeling Heath Ledger's Dark Knight villain, the Joker, whatever that guy was called. So, he's a super clever guy. He's not going to do something stupid. He obviously researched. He probably, looked at all the laws, all the parameters. Do you think if it wasn't an LC that people wouldn't have gone crazy on him? If it was a nonprofit, they still would have gone crazy on him. It's so funny that you can give away, quote unquote. Some people bitch that it's okay, he's taking it from his left pocket and putting it in his right. So he really didn't change the world or help anybody, right? He just shifted money around and he still controls it, whatever. But if he did it as an LLC, or if he did it as a nonprofit, he'd still be going nuts on him. There's some reason he's doing this, and I think it's hilarious. So I'd want to choose where my money goes. If I'm going to give away $45 billion, I'm not going to hand it to another person because I don't know if I've known them for 20 years. I still don't trust them.
You have a moral obligation to do it intelligently.
Right.
This is like, if you owned the world's oil supply or, some great amount of food or clean water, you would want to dole it out in an intelligent manner so it was not wasted, so the humanity got the full benefit of it. This is an unprecedented gift. When people take the giving pledge, they agree to give half their wealth, at least half their wealth. And everybody signed up for that. This is giving away 99% of your wealth. And the reason to do an LLC, by the way, is a lot of the great change in the world is coming from people who are doing it through for-profit entities, right? They're doing companies like Solar City or Tesla or Tom's of Maine or whatever it is. So you can't invest in companies if you're this kind of nonprofit. He can invest, and he can also do political stuff.
You do the NFL.
He could invest in the NFL and have them take away contact.
They're not for profit.
They're not. Oh, that's right. They're not.
That's what I mean. The only one that really makes a lot of money that's not for profit is the NFL. But anyway.
Yeah, but the individual owners make the money.
Yeah.
So what an incredible thing he's done. And let's see how it actually turns out. Okay, Bitcoin, Satoshi, doxing fake out. Gizmodo Australia uncovered evidence that Aussie Craig Stephen Wright and the deceased American David Kleinman were involved some way in Bitcoin. The Aussie police had raided Wright's home last week for some tax reason. What is your take on all of this, Ryan? Are these the guys who did it?
No.
So once again, we've gotten it wrong.
Yeah. I mean,
the poor guy who was living somewhere in California, they banged down his door too, the old Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Dorian Nakamoto.
Dorian Nakamoto. So he's Japanese. He has to be Satoshi.
Right, of course.
Of course.
Absolutely. Because he would totally use his real last name.
Right. He would totally use a Japanese name to hide himself, right?
I mean, what is the... Why do we care? Why, honestly, why do we need to know who Satoshi Nakamoto is? Why isn't it acceptable to just not know that?
I just accept the fact that the CIA did this. I mean, is it not clear to everybody that this is just a way for American imperialism to spread on the globe?
I mean,
Let's hear can you flesh that out for me?
Yeah, I love the X-Files. It's just a conceivable. No, I mean, I think this. I as I've said before, Bitcoin is probably one of the most dangerous technology ideas we've ever had because it decentralizes control over monetary policy. But what people tend to forget is the government at any time can ban anything they want. Every time somebody comes out with some new synthetic drug, The government says, yeah, no. They put it on a list of banned substances. If you want to create any kind of, a gadget or electronic device that uses some type of wave, the government can say no. The government can do whatever they want in this regard.
Drones now. Right?
Now you have to register drones if they're over half a pound. So the fact is, it can't. I think maybe Tor, that is more conceivable to me as a government honeypot kind of project. But
Well, if it wasn't before, it sure is now.
for sure it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
now it's like the FBI has hacked so many Tor endpoints.
let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin in general. Are you optimistic about Bitcoin now, Brian? Do you think it's going to have some profound impact on society?
So I'm sure it will.
Or false start?
I'm sure it will. It's just such a huge idea. I haven't stockpiled Bitcoin, so I kind of don't care. Who she
No horse
is,
in the race.
who the person who invented this.
Yeah.
Right? Someday my kids will just know. They're like, oh, we always knew who it was. We knew who she was, who invented Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Honestly, because I didn't stockpile it, but I know it's going to be a big thing. I don't care yet, and it's just I just think it's funny that the evidence of this guy was like, it was in emails all the time. He's like, oh, I'm just having this whole Satoshi thing. It's so much work keeping up this facade, this ruse, this thing. I should just let it all go tomorrow. It's in all these emails, and it makes me want to just do that with my coworkers all day long. Like, guys, the Satoshi thing is just getting to me. One day, I just gotta tell people.
Yes.
It's just a goof. So,
Well, I was always twittering that I was hanging out with Satoshi a couple of years ago because I knew one of the guys who was early into cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to set people up to think that
oh yeah.
somebody else was Satoshi.
That's what Satoshi would do, actually. Pretend to throw you off the trail.
Exactly.
Right. Life of Brian.
I also really like this idea that Satoshi is a person. Could be a team of people.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Could be a very large team of people that are just extremely tight and highly organized and, all have access to the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and have decided to walk away from the project. I mean, why do we just assume it's one person?
It probably is a team of people. Yeah, that would seem reasonable.
Hard to keep a secret if it's a team. If it was a
it
team
could-
of 8 people,
okay, what if it was
one
3
would have
people
to kill the
or
other
4
7
people?
to keep it a secret.
What do you think ultimately will be the killer app of Bitcoin? Will there be a killer app of Bitcoin? Will we be using Bitcoin, with our Apple Pay on our watches eventually? We'll be using it for micro content payments. What will the killer app be? Because it seems like the only application now is money laundering and or speculation, hoping Bitcoin will go up and buying it as a speculative commodity.
I think Bitcoin is actually a really good low-level monetary transfer tool and protocol.
So money transfer.
So yeah, it could be transferring money overseas. Could be just as a system to interconnect different financial networks. That works really well. It's highly efficient. It's fast and it's open, which means plugging into it is a lot easier than trying to say plug into, the Visa credit processing network. And it's all verifiable. So the killer Bitcoin app might not be something that it might be too boring for most people to care about.
Right. It could just be reconciling people's accounts in the background. So
it just disappears into the fabric, becomes a fabric that other things happen on.
Yeah.
And it's all accountable and traceable.
It's a protocol.
And, yes.
So like what Joyce Kim is doing with Stellar,
right?
And building on top of Bitcoin as a network for establishing financial presence in the developing world. I mean, that's a really important application for it. You may not be using Bitcoin transactionally, but you're using Bitcoin as a transfer mechanism.
And those places, it's sort of like them skipping the PC and the laptop era and going directly to mobile. They could skip the whole step of credit cards and banking and just go to...
Right, because again, it's decentralized and it's open and it's verifiable. And yeah, you don't have a single entity telling you, no, because we can't skim something off the top, and it costs money to be poor, right? And so tools that enable poor people to have greater access to financial instruments without penalizing them for being poor, those are powerful and meaningful tools.
Okay. Alibaba has purchased the South China Morning Post. This would be the equivalent of Google buying the New York Times, which I have on insider information was actually brought up as a topic of discussion at Google of buying the New York Times when they were in trouble and putting it into some sort of a trust to, maintain it or whatever. They didn't do it because obviously they didn't want it to look as obviously insane as Alibaba purchasing the South China Morning Post looks. Brian, what do you think about the largest internet company buying the largest paper in China?
So I think I think all of these things are owned by somebody nefarious, and it's better to be transparent and know exactly who it is than to wonder who the hell is giving you your news, or because it's always somebody, right? Isn't there something in the U.S. where they're still trying to figure out some, like Vegas or something, some big newspaper, they don't know who the owner is yet?
Yeah, the Vegas.
It's been like a month or two.
I read that headline.
Right.
The people who work for a Vegas newspaper don't know who actually.
They don't know
owns
who
it.
bought their company, but they're owned by somebody.
Somebody
so
bought
I think that
the
mystery,
Las Vegas Herald or whatever it is.
So it's very unsettling to know that, and I think it's very not unsettling to know whether it's Luke or Vader, like which one. Like,
or Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, exactly.
Who owns Washington Post.
Yep, everything's owned by somebody.
What do you think of this? You think this is something that's we're going to see more of? I mean, obviously Bezos bought something here, but he bought it personally. But what difference does it make? It's one bucket or the other.
I mean, the situation of media in China is already so massively twisted,
compromised.
And, compromised. Corrupt might be too strong of a word, because I think there are a lot of people with very good intentions, and they're trying to work within a very crappy system. I mean, I think we in the Western world think that this is insane and bizarre and perverse, but I think in China it's I don't think anybody probably cares, or if they do care, only because it's different from, instead of being state owned, now it's technology firm owned.
We were all in the content business together, doing blogs, et cetera, and we've seen everything has sort of gone downhill. Advertising has become commoditized. Gawker's had a bunch of problems trying to keep growing. BuzzFeed has grown, but who knows for how long that will continue. They're doing kind of schlocky stuff, and then it seems like actually some actual real journalism on the back end. But there isn't quality journalism going on at the rate maybe we were expecting. Advertising is cratering. What do you guys think the news business looks like in another 10 years? Do you think that there is a solution to high-quality journalism existing in the world, or is it going to go away or be very tiny? And if it does go away, what does that mean for society, Brian?
So I think it gets smaller and smaller, right? So I've talked to people about the death of journalism for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Because there's publishing overall, there's journalism specifically, and the problem is very easy to kind of zero in on, right? You used to have 6 sections to a newspaper, and some of them made a ton of money, and they kind of supported the other ones, the actual pure journalism type things, right? And then as classifieds went away to Craigslist, and sports and entertainment became TMZ, so did sports. All these things kind of vanished, and then you have the one thing you're not allowed to actually run ads next to, which is like the orphanage fire. Like, what do you put next to the orphanage fire?
Yeah, the Metro
Catholic
section has
the Catholic priest sex scandal. Like, what who do you run an ad for next to that? Right? It's kind of horrible.
I've got about 7 jokes, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's so it's very easy to say, well, here's what's wrong with it, right? Now step in and run Yahoo, step in and run whatever, right? Do this. I think it's smaller. I think then people's attention just goes sideways. To the Kardashians, to all the crap that's all over Facebook. I just think we just kind of retrained ourselves.
Cynical.
No, isn't it good? Like you're not a writer anymore. You don't care if people actually have a brain and care about news, right? So I think your attention just goes sideways, and you just fill it up with other 5-minute little chewy bites of stuff, and then you don't care so much. So I think there's less news, but I think there's less appetite for news. So I think it's still a perfect fit.
So consumers, this next generation, they just don't care to read the newspaper every day. They're just not as good citizens in terms of trying to digest quality content. Do you agree, Ryan, with the state of affairs as Brian describes them?
I think people grow up. I think their tastes mature. This almost always happens. Every generation starts out more frivolous than they wind up in the long run, and that's okay. That's what we expect generationally, so I'm not too worried about that. And every generation has definitely has its equivalent of Kardashians and other, things like that. So
MTV.
Yeah, I mean,
Short
it's all silly and
I
ridiculous.
had A-Team and the Dukes of Hazzard, right? That was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that there will probably be longer term as all these big media companies slowly bleed out. There'll be a lot of consolidation. I think the reality is we probably have too many big, high-minded, idealistically driven media companies in the country. I say the more the better, right? But I mean, from a financial standpoint, that's just not going to work forever, right?
Not sustainable.
Yeah, it's not sustainable to have, the Times and the Tribune and the Globe and,
LA Times.
Yeah, exactly. LA Times Company.
Washington Post.
There's so many, and they're going to start to collapse in on each other eventually. And there will be less overall journalism happening, but I don't think the quality of journalism will go down. I mean, do we really complain all the time about the fact that there's only 2 major viable search engines? It works, right? I mean, there's still enough there to keep a business alive and competitive and good.
Contract, but there'll be enough quality journalism to be informed. I
think so. And I am hopeful given I don't know, it feels ambivalent, but there are dual objectives happening in media organizations like BuzzFeed, right? Which is, the same thing that you're describing, where you've got the fluff, but alongside that, you've got serious journalists doing serious journalism, and Vice and Vox to a certain extent. I think there are still efforts here, and I'm not willing to write it all off yet, but certainly legacy media businesses, I would not be long on those.
And it seems that consumers are going to pay. The Wall Street Journal has done very well with subscriptions. The New York Times has even built up their digital subscription base. It seems to be working, this porous paywall of you get to see 10 articles and then you pay.
I mean, that's not what I've seen in the numbers. There's overall subscriptions may be up, but revenue from subscriptions is not keeping them afloat. Their quarterly profits are still bleeding out very consistently. Print is not doing well. So, I mean, it's like they're not going under tomorrow, but I'm not long on Times Company. I think that maybe as the consolidation happens, maybe if they outlast a bunch of the other big newspapers and consumers start to reconsolidate around the Times, that could help boost their numbers. But this to me is kind of it's a war of attrition they're all fighting right now, not against each other, but just against the general trends of media consumption.
I tried to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal the other day. They make it so confounding to just subscribe. Digital was like $29, and then digital and print was like $30.
This is to read the rest of that article that starts with you. Is that what the one?
No.
Because I would have
know what the thing about the
Wall Street for that.
Yes, exactly. No, I just felt like I should be reading it, and then I was like, well, it's $1 more to get the print, and I was like, okay, I'll just get the one with the print. But then I was like, I don't know if I want print coming to my house every day.
Right.
And then I was like, but it just didn't make any sense to me. And then everything is like this fakaka, subscription $1 for the first 3 months, and then you don't actually know what you're paying for the next couple of months. But it's $400 a year essentially for the Wall Street Journal. The New York Times a little bit less. But do you think people will pay for content enough so that it will be, obviously Recurrency is doing reoccurring donations to a lot of content providers. Do you think that this will become a model that people will pay, and then that will, the crowdfunding, reoccurring crowdfunding, subscription model will be able to give us quality journalism in the world?
Wow. So 2 different things, right? So one, I think it's a good model. I think it's great for certain people. But again, it's great for medium level stars. You're not going to recurring crowdfund the New York Times, right? And if you think of their subscription model as that, it's dwindling. It's not.
It's been growing. The digital has been growing.
Okay.
It's just not keeping up with the decline of the advertising.
Yeah. Oh, correct.
So that's, I guess, the issue is can they get enough subscribers for it to actually work?
Because I think so. If you think of it as you're subscribing to journalists there in particular, right? I'm subscribing to journalists plus all the overhead of the Times Company, right? Is there enough money for that? Probably not. Is there enough money for certain superstar journalists, right? The Nate Silvers of the world, people like that, to go off and do their own brand? Yes. So that is the innovator's dilemma for the Times, right? And that's the superstars, and it's so no. So I think on an individual level, on a smaller scale, you can have a lot of people doing really well, doing some neat things. But something like the Times, I don't think lives like that. I don't know how they show that value. I think they have to do something else.
All right.
I think they also haven't been. So we all think of newspapers as really having cut back, but newspapers still. Given where we have come from, literally the 3 of us, the companies that we've worked at together. We started incredibly small and scrappy and did a lot with what I think our competitors at the time found an unbelievably small amount of resources, right? And we managed to run circles around them. Most big newspapers and media companies have yet to face that kind of a moment where they have to scale back to the point that they thought was completely impossible or
They're not scrappy.
they're not scrappy, and they're going to have to be scrappy. And sooner or later, either they will make the decision to be scrappy, or that decision will be made for them. And so every big round of cuts and layoffs at a big media company, they get a little scrappier.
They had pensions.
But the morale goes
I mean, the
down.
New York Times
Yes.
had pensions. I mean, pensions are a concept that, just given how long people live, to work for 20 or 30 years and then get paid half your salary or 2/3 of your salary for the rest of your life. I mean, it's an antiquated concept given how long people live. Pensions don't work. You have a 401k and you got to manage that yourself somehow. They actually got rid of it. And then they bought this huge building in Times Square that's just gigantic and gorgeous. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, they rent out a lot of the buildings, so it actually generates revenue for them. That's one of their primary revenue generators, oddly.
Yeah.
And that is actually the case for a lot of big media companies, that especially the property holding ones, their property generates an enormous amount of their revenue now, given how far they've fallen. But anyway, my macro point is just that they have a long way to go to true scrappiness. And
halfway there, maybe.
Probably not even. And they might be surprised how deep they can cut before they hit bone. And they're gonna have to get there at some point, and they're gonna have to learn how to reinvent themselves as both quality and scrappy.
So this is like a Pink Floyd album, because we're going back to like where the show started again. So you got Yahoo, right?
Yeah.
They started probably scrappy, right? At one day they were a startup for a while.
Yeah.
We may even still call them a startup, but that's foolish. So then they get huge and big and lazy and slow and all these things. And somebody comes in and says, "Okay, guys, we're not going to be lazy anymore." Right? How many people stand up and say, "Hooray! Like I'm in. I can't wait."
No,
get up, right?
nobody.
Nobody. So like Ryan said,
They're like, "Give me free food and give me an iPhone."
Right. So you make that change, or that change happens to you. Either way, one, nobody makes that change, and two, when it happens to you, you don't survive it.
They didn't make the cuts. I mean, if Marissa had cut for every person she brought in from these acqui-hires, if she cut 2 of the people at Yahoo, then you might be looking at more profitability each quarter.
Right.
And they could have just had cut half the people, and the business would look totally differently. People might be looking at it as a growth business again. What do you think the state? You're both in the startup business, and obviously this is This Week in Startups. Both of you just recently have been out there raising money in the last year, let's say. I'm an investor in both companies, actually. What is the funding environment like, even for seasoned entrepreneurs like you, out there in 2015 going into 2016?
Sure. It's I don't know. I'm lucky. It's not bad, right? It hasn't been hard. But then again,
define hard.
Well, no. So I haven't run out of money. We're not out of business yet.
How many investors do you have to meet with to land one? 10 to 1, 20 to 1?
Yeah, it's 10 to 1. It's a lot. It could be even more than 10 to 1. It's so I'm sorry. It's not that it's not hard. It's still work, right? You don't just flip a switch and then everybody kind of just shows up with their checks, right? So it's certainly not that.
But it was like that for a time last year or the year before.
Yeah, I would say it's probably easier. So yes, the climate's gotten a little harder. People are being a little smarter. People are taking a little bit of time, but it's still a game. I was explaining this to a developer that works with me who bought the Brad Feld book to kind of understand how all this stuff works. And he's like, "So I'm learning all these things and understanding all this stuff." I'm like, "Well, it's like part math, part poker, part timing, and then part luck. Like that's the only 4 things that go into it. And every time it's a process, and you have to kind of. It doesn't matter if you're who's the most investable person in the world, like.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk, right? So Elon Musk still has to say, okay, I've got to give them fear of missing out. I've got to set an arbitrary deadline, even though it doesn't really exist.
Would be the other one.
I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I've got to play all these games. Uber probably has to get the $1 billion out of somebody for whatever the thing is they're doing. They still have to say, guys, I've got 3 others waiting, even if they're not. You have to play all the same games. So you just have to be great at those things, and you'll do fine. But there's a lot of weird artificial things you have to do to make it happen. And sometimes you're in position to do it, and sometimes you're out of position. My favorite quote across all these things right now is the AngelList
Naval.
founder, right? His quote, which is that all startups are unfundable until they're oversubscribed, and that's it. So if you think you can only raise $400,000, then you say, okay, I'm looking for 300, and then boom, you'll find out it worked.
Yeah,
right?
500.
But if you say I'm going for $1 million and you can only raise $400,000, you're permanently stuck on 40%. 40% will never go to 100%. 90% goes to 150. So there are all these little games you play, and it's all about position. So it's poker, it's math, it's timing, and it's luck.
Ryan, what has your experience been? Obviously,
so I actually just pulled up my numbers to see what the the ratio of firms I talked to versus firms that invested. I left out angels. For me, it was between 4 and 5 to 1, which is probably pretty good. Sometimes it didn't feel good, right? I mean, sometimes it didn't feel like it was going to go that way. And some of them came later, not because they hung around the net waiting to, see if the round got de-risked, but just, they were just people we talked to later in the process as opposed to earlier in the process. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I wouldn't say it was like a layup. It took a little longer, I think, for us to raise than I had hoped, but it still worked out okay. But I also recognize that, I'm somebody with a little bit of a track record and a really killer team. I mean, a team that is really far better than I am. So that made it easier.
Serial entrepreneurs, 5 to 10 meetings to 1. A regular civilian coming out of the gate might be 30, 40, 50 to 1.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're not coming out of, like a YC or something like that.
I'll tell you one more wacky thing is you talk about the track record, right? We can write, like, here's the things I've done, and you'll get a meeting, right? So that's really good. And early on when you set a lower price, like I got a 2 million note, a 5, a 3, whatever, I see people with 8 and 13 and 15 and like, they have no track record. It's really weird. So you're going to have better luck if you're maybe more sane about your pricing and you create a little story, you create a process, and that's all. It's just a funny thing.
What do you think?
Having a network is also really important too.
Yeah,
I mean that's obvious, but
a network is critical.
Absolutely. I mean,
it can't be your first meeting. You can't expect on your first meeting to get the check.
Absolutely.
If it's a 2 or 3 year relationship, fantastic.
Sure.
What do you think 2016 is going to look like? There's a lot of people worried that winter is coming. Chris Zuck on the program, winter is coming. We've had a 7-year boom cycle. Everybody is assuming that it's over at some point. Is it going to end in 2016 or 2017, or will we see a long boom?
I think we're going to see some market corrections. I don't think we're going to see anything super severe, but we'll probably continue to see belt tightening. We'll probably continue to see ratcheting up of caution and diligence, increased diligence in the process. But I mean, it's weird, right? Because the more conservative investing gets, the further away from its true nature it becomes. Like the whole idea, the core nature of venture capital is to spot something that looks crazy and ridiculous before anyone else does and help it come to life. And the more conservative it gets, the less likely it is to execute on its core premise. So, I'm doing the thing that I'm not talking about right now that will hopefully be launching next year. It was highly self-selecting. People who wanted to be part of it really wanted to be part of it. And those who didn't wanted absolutely nothing to do with it.
They were like, this will never work, or this has a 10% chance of working, I don't want in.
Right.
The people who did were like, hey, if this 10% or 20% chance of working works out, it's going to return more than 5 or 10 to 1.
Right.
The implied odds would be high.
Yes. And so that to me is always really interesting, right? Because, sure, the metaphor that I always tell people when we're thinking about venture capital is you start every meeting with 2 meters. One is full and one is empty. The risk meter is totally full and the opportunity meter is totally empty. And your job as you're pitching and meeting is to drain out that risk meter as far as you can get it and fill up that opportunity meter as high as you can get it. And so you have to be doing those two things simultaneously. And then sometimes there's also a third meter. It's like the FOMO meter, right? You want to fill that one up too. But generally that comes as a consequence of the other two. If you can't have that risk meter drained, right? If you're always too on guard about the risk, then you're going to be unable to see the opportunity.
And some risk is good. If it's risky and you have an opportunity, if you do make it work, for it to be unique and valuable in the world. Brian, what do you think the next couple of years are going to look like?
So I think both of us are very early stage, so it doesn't matter, right? Like if everything corrects, what's it going to do to us, right? Like if I had a $1 billion company or a $1 billion private company, I would be really, really worried, right? Is my E round going to go under my D round, right? Like I don't have those problems. We don't have to think about that stuff. So I'm not worried. It's probably smart to say there'll be some correction, but it won't be that big, right? I would agree with that, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of can't be too worried. So I am in a macro sense because, like, of course you have to be, right? You have to, like, pay attention to what's going on. But, I mean, macroeconomic trends and forces are either going to, result in us going out of business or not. I don't know. I mean, companies get created during every downturn and during boom times and down. Yeah. So it's like,
finding
what's going to happen is going to happen. Like we just have to do our job.
Right. I want to not run out of money. I want to have smart people working for me and build great things, and that's it.
Product market fit in a way gets easier when the market is down because there's less noise in the market.
Absolutely.
So you're not competing with as much, and people are looking for solutions and products and services in down markets as much as they are in an up market.
Yes, and the company that we all did together was in a down market, and then the company that I did with Peter that you invested in immediately after was in the downest market ever. I literally quit my job the 2 days before Lehman Brothers crashed. Yeah, I mean,
no more Bear Stearns.
It happens, right? You just gotta
stay the course.
Stick to it.
Stay the course.
I'll tell you the best thing, if there is some kind of a correction like that. If I know 50 people, there are 50 people running their own damn company. It's not 50 people working on 10 things or 5 things, right? Everybody has their own thing. It's very hard to get talent. So I think if there's some kind of a correction, maybe I'll say, wait a minute, maybe I do need a job. Maybe I'd like to go work with somebody else, not run my own thing, right? So
and this town is becoming completely not sustainable, at least San Francisco proper.
Right.
This is becoming a breaking point, I think. You moved out here 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
10.
10 now?
Mm-hmm.
I moved out last year. You moved out this year. This city is completely
It's completely changed like 3 times since I've been here.
Just bonkers.
Yeah.
It's like impossible to live in this town.
I mean, you can go back to LA if you want.
I feel poor.
Yeah, when you say that, like, oh my God.
It's really like a crazy feeling to be in this town and watch what rent is for people. 1 bedroom's for $3,500, $4,000. I mean, you're basically out $50,000 to when you wake up in the morning. I mean, how do you hire anybody? Are you guys hiring people outside of the city? Is that
I mean, my sample size is really small right now.
Yeah,
so
2 or 3 people.
Yeah, so we're like 4 people total, and my next 2 are, part-time and remote, so.
Yeah, a lot of remote.
100% outside of San Francisco. Not because I hate San Francisco. I love San Francisco. But they don't need to be here. I need to be here, right?
Right. It's going to be the trend. I think a lot of startups have like a couple of the founders here, a couple of the founders and other folks living in a place that's 1/3 or 1/5 the cost of living in this crazy city. And I think Berkeley and the East Bay, it's like starting to percolate now.
No, it's already nuts there, right? And everybody talks about Oakland is too expensive to live in. It's been that way for a long time. So I'm at like the limit of the East Bay. And there are people, like I'll get an Uber home at night from the last stop on the BART train there. And that person already moved 20 minutes further out because they can't live where I live.
Right.
Like, that's
the
nuts.
end of the line.
Yeah, they're mentioning
is no longer the end of the line.
Correct. I'm learning all these other towns that they moved to so they can actually get some space and have a kid and, a nice place. And then they come to my town to drive, which is still the outskirts of like suburbs of San Francisco.
It is true. A lot of people who are working for the ride-sharing services or delivery services or any of that stuff are coming in from an hour outside of the city to then make 3 times the hourly wage an hour outside of the city.
You guys are making me feel like I should rent my garage out to a startup or something.
You have a garage?
I have a
garage. And it's not rented out? What do you
It's
have in your garage?
A car.
You own a car in San Francisco?
What kind of an idiot am I?
Wow.
I could clearly. I have 3 cars in San Francisco. I'm a true idiot. I'm getting rid of 2 of them. I just got 1 car and go full Uber. It's just crazy to even own a car here. Like the fact that this is one of my perceptions about this city is they haven't realized it's a city yet. It's a town that's a city, and this is a group of people living like this is a town, not a city. Like people want to park on the street in San Francisco. Like, can you imagine in Manhattan parking on the street?
They don't even let you drive on the street. They just pave it all off and put in chairs, Times Square.
Yeah.
You can't drive through
They're
Times
like,
Square,
enough
right?
of driving. And you cannot park in Midtown Manhattan. There's no such thing as parking on the street in Midtown Manhattan. In San Francisco, in the gridlock area, there are parking spaces on the street. It's
That's
like,
bizarre.
How are there parking spaces on these streets? There are people double parking in San Francisco. When I'm mayor, I'm going to change all this. You want to hear a crazy one?
You've got my vote.
Yep.
I get an email yesterday from a local radio station, like an AM station here that's like they fired everybody. They're like looking for new blood. The guy emailed me and said, I'm the new station manager, and I want you to do a show because I know you're going to run for mayor at some point, and I want you to talk about local issues and technology and startups in San Francisco. And I wrote him back. I said, is it that desperate that you need the Howard Stern of tech to come on your network and talk about local issues? Can you imagine me doing a talk show?
I'll do a morning show.
I definitely can imagine it.
Yeah,
But no, I'm doing a talk show right now.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
a talk show about local issues in San Francisco.
Not hard to imagine.
Hey, it's the voice.
We just
of,
did that for like 15 minutes.
We did
just
do it
that.
for the last 10 minutes, but from a tech. But can you imagine me being like, okay, let's talk about the Tenderloin. You're on the line. Go ahead, Ryan. It'd be hilarious. I might do it for the LOLs.
I think you should do it.
I may do it just strictly for the LOLs.
Just do it for
10 weeks. 10-week run talking about San
See what
Francisco.
happens. Why not?
Just for the LOLs.
We say lols.
Just for the LOLs.
We don't say LOL. Come on,
I say it
Jason.
for the LOL. I do it for the lulls. All right. Do I have to say lulls? I'll say lulls. All right. Hey, thanks to our friends at PagerDuty. What a great partner they've been on the program. And thanks to Envision, 2 great products we use all the time. And you can thank them at PagerDuty and at Envision app. If you're a super fan, it is your duty. It is your Geary. It is your responsibility to thank the sponsors on, if you made it to this point in the show, you are a super fan. It is your duty to thank them on Twitter and Facebook and to use their products and to tell them how awesome they are for doing that. Follow Brian Alvey on Twitter. Follow Ryan on Twitter. And keep an eye out for the Bug Bot and Small Wins. And watch the MVP, the show, at MVP, the show. You guys still doing it?
When we can. It's
when you
difficult.
can.
Me with
MVP
a
the
startup,
show with,
Rojas with an investing career.
Exactly.
But we're making it
Look at that. All my boys are growing up.
Oh, my
CEOs, investors. So proud of you boys. Doing so well
Thanks, Jason.
in the market. So proud to be an investor. Recurrency, follow Recurrency. And Recurrency has a new product that I saw at dinner the other night, and it is kick-ass. You're going to get to see the new Recurrency product from Brian Alvey on March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the Launch Festival. And if you'd like to come to the Launch Festival as our guest, go to launchfestival.com. 6 of the 10,000 tickets we give away for free are already gone. You can sign up at launchfestival.com and see Brian Alvey do his thing. Actually, Peter Rojas is doing an AMA there, and maybe Ryan Block will launch Small Wins there. Will Small Wins be ready for March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th?
We'll see what we can do.
Can you do a preview?
We'll see what we can do.
You don't have to launch it there. You can do an alpha preview.
We'll see what we
Really
can do.
small win, not like the big small.
Not the big
tiniest,
small win, but the
tiny small
All right,
win.
we'll book it.
The littlest.
All right, pencil him in, Jackie. Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. I want to pencil in Ryan Block for a launch. Okay, we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.